Hi library friends, Miss Becky here, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet a small owl in the Amigurumi style. The colors we're using will make our owl look like Hedwig from Harry Potter, and I based the pattern on the book Mini Crochet Creatures by Lauren Bergstrom, but I made some changes. Amigurumi is a style of crochet used to make small stuffed creatures. It originated in Japan. The name amigurumi comes from the Japanese word ami, meaning crocheted or knitted, and nugurimi, meaning stuffed doll. For this project, we'll need a number 4 medium yarn in white and black. We want acrylic or cotton yarn, something that isn't too fuzzy so it's easy to work with. We'll need a size E, which is 3.5 millimeters crochet hook. Amigurumi uses a small hook to ensure that the stuffing doesn't fall out of our finished product. Then we'll also need stuffing, scissors, safety eyes, black thread, a sewing needle, a yarn needle, a stitch marker, and felt in yellow and black. Before we start crocheting, we're going to prep the eyes and the beak for our owl. So to make the eyes, we're going to layer a circle of yellow felt on top of a circle of black felt, and then put our safety eye inside of it. So I'm going to start by folding my yellow felt in half and then cutting out a circle. And you can play with the shape of this. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. You could kind of make it cat-eyed to add some personality to your owl, or you can just make it a regular circle. Okay, so once you have the yellow cut out, you're going to do the same thing with the black. But you want to try and make it a little bit bigger than your yellow was, so that way you can see an edge of black around the yellow circle. So once I have these cut, I will layer them and see what I think about the size. So those are pretty good. It gives me just a slight layer or edge of black around the yellow. Then what I'll do next is take my little circle, fold it in half, and I'm going to cut just a slight slit. I'm going to do that in all 4 of my circles. Just the tiniest little slit, so there's a little hole in the center. You do not want to cut all the way through. Okay, so once I have all of those slits, I'll take my safety eyes. I'm going to put those through. See, so that is very much like Hedwig's eye in the Harry Potter movies, with the big yellow part, a black pupil, and a very slight black outline. Okay, now I'll set these aside, and now I'm going to cut out a beak. So for this, it'll just be a thin triangle. Snowy owls have a pretty thin beak. There we go. Now I'll set all of this aside and we'll start crocheting. If this is your first time reading a crochet pattern, the abbreviations might not make any sense. So here's what you need to know. The abbreviations used in this pattern are CH for chain, ST for stitch, SC for single crochet, HDC for half double crochet, DC for double crochet, and SC2 TOG for single crochet 2 together. If this is your very first time crocheting, you might find it helpful to watch some intro to crochet tutorials before starting. I'll cover some of the basics, but if you find it confusing, watching multiple tutorials can help. So we're going to start with holding our crochet hook. There's a few different ways that people hold it, but I kind of hold it in my hand like this, a bit similar to how I might hold a knife, and I use my pointer finger to help guide my stitches that are on my hook. Now, the very first thing you'll do before you start crocheting is make a slip knot. To do that, use your pointer finger and take your yarn, wrap it 2 times around your pointer finger. Have both edges of the yarn facing down. Now you'll take this loop and bring it over the front loop. Now this is your new front loop and this is your back loop, and so you'll take this loop, the back one, and bring it over the front loop and all the way over your finger. Then you'll take the loop that's left on your finger, slide it off and pull up. We'll kind of show that again. So you wrap the yarn twice around your finger, take the back loop, bring it over the front loop, take the new back loop, bring it over the front loop and over the edge of your finger. You can pull those pieces down, slide the loop off of your finger. Now you'll put it on your crochet hook and it's a slip knot. Okay, so once you have your slip knot done, we will get started. Now the first piece of our pattern is to single crochet 6 stitches into a ring. There are multiple methods for making a ring. One is called the magic ring, the other is the chain method. I just use the chain method because it makes more sense to me. So that's what I'll show you how to do. We're going to start by chaining 4 stitches. So to do that, we yarn over, which is bringing the yarn around our hook and kind of giving it into that little crevice there, and then we pull that yarn through the loop that's currently on our hook, like that. And so that's 1, and we're going to do that 3 more times. So we yarn over, get the yarn kind of nestled into the hook, and then pull the loop down here, up and over our hook. That's 2. We're going to do it again. Yarn over, pull through, 3, and 1 more time, yarn over, and pull through, that's 4. Now, we're going to take our hook and stick it into our first chain. So the first hole that you see on your chain, we're going to stick our hook through that. Then we are going to do a slip stitch where we yarn over and we just pull through both of those loops on our hook. Now we have this little mess of yarn right here. What we're going to do is pull it apart, and you can see when you pull it that you kind of have something that looks like a pretzel or a face, with a circle here, and a circle on the bottom. We're going to start crocheting into this bottom circle. So we're going to stick that circle through our hook. Now we're going to start single crocheting. To single crochet, you yarn over and pull through the first loop on your hook. Now you still have 2 loops on your hook. You yarn over again and you pull through both loops on your hook. So that's 1 stitch. Now we're going to do 6 of those around this little circle, and that will give us the start for our owl. So that's 1, and we go back through that center circle, yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, and pull through both loops on your hook. That's 2. We're going to go into the center circle, yarn over, pull back through the center circle, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. So that's 3, and now we'll do 3 more. Okay, so now I have 6 stitches in a circle, and I can go back and count them if I need to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I find it a little bit hard to see it with white wool, just the way that the light reflects off the wool. So feel free, if you're not sure where all of your stitches are, you can kind of pull at them and examine what you have going on. And of course, with more practice, it becomes easier to find where all of your stitches are. Okay, so this was the first row in our pattern, and now we're going to go on to the next row. And our pattern says to crochet 2 single crochets into each stitch. So what we're doing is an increase. We're going to crochet 2 times into each stitch. So we're going to go from 6 total stitches to 12 total stitches. And I'll show you how to do that. So find your first stitch right here. We're going to go into that stitch, and so that's the space between that stitch and kind of like the base of our circle. Now we're going to single crochet 2 times in this stitch. So for the first time, we yarn over, we pull through that first loop, then we yarn over and we pull through both loops on our hook. Now for our next stitch, we're going to go into the same stitch that we just worked in. So we go in, we yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through both loops on our hook. So that was an increase. And now we'll move on to our next stitch. And you can kind of tell the stitch that you were just working in, because if you pull it, it's taut. But we'll go into the next one, which is right here. So you go into this stitch, yarn over, pull through. Now you have 2 loops on your hook, and you yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. And we're going to work in that stitch one more time. So go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. So since we just did 2 increased stitches, we have a total of 4 in this new row. We're going up to 12. So we're going to do that 4 more times. So go on to the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both, and again. So that is a total of 6 stitches. Eight. Go on to the next one. 10. 11. and 12. So that is our full second row. Our third row, we're going to be increasing from 12 stitches to 18 stitches total. So to do this, we will do an increase stitch, so that's where we do 2 single crochets in 1 stitch, and then just a regular single crochet. And then we'll do an increase and a regular single crochet. And we are going to have 18 stitches total. Now, I find it best if I count all of my stitches and I count till 18, and that's how I know where I ended. But sometimes that can be difficult. So if you're afraid you'll lose count, you can use a stitch marker. And to use the stitch marker, you'll put it in what would be the last stitch of the row. Okay. And if I can fasten it. Okay, I can't fasten it, but it'll stay in place. So that helps me know once I've completed this row, but again, I find it the most accurate if you just count each stitch, but it's up to you what you want to do. Okay, so for row 3, we do an increase. So we go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook, and we do it again in the same stitch. So in, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So that's an increase. That gives us 2 stitches in this row. And now we move on to our next spot, and we're just going to do 1 single crochet. So we go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. So that's just 1, and now we'll move on to the next one. So we have a total of 3 stitches. Now we're going to increase again. Gives us 5, then a single crochet, 6, increase, 8, single crochet, 9, increase, 11, single crochet, 12, increase, 15, increase, 17, and then I'm going to remove my stitch marker and do 1 more single crochet, and that gives me 18 stitches in total. So now we're moving on to row 4. We're going to increase again here, but we're moving from 18 stitches to 24 stitches. So we're going to do an increase and then 2 single crochets in the next 2 stitches, and then an increase and then 2 single crochets. So it'll be adding 1 more regular single crochet in there from our last row. Again, you can add your stitch marker if you need to. I'm going to do this quick without it. So I'll find my next stitch, and I'm going to do an increase, so a single crochet, and then a single crochet again into that same stitch, and then 1 stitch in the next 2 stitches. So single crochet and single crochet. And I'm going to do another increase, and then single crochet in the next 2 stitches. and then an increase, and then single crochet, 1 and single crochet, 2. I started losing count. I think I'm at 14. Going to count my stitches really quick because I'm either at 20 or 22. So to check, I can go back and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So the last thing I'm going to do is increase this one right here. Now I have 24. So that was the last row at which we're going to increase, and now we're moving on to rows 5 through 11. These ones will be pretty fast. All you're going to do is single crochet into each stitch around for 7 rows. So this would be a really great time to use your stitch marker because you're not increasing. So if you don't want to count, you can put your stitch marker in and you're going to go around 7 times. I find it hard to keep track of my rows too, so I often on my pattern or on a piece of paper make little tally marks so I know how many rows I've done. So I'll do 1 row here. And then I actually kind of fast forwarded it and have the rest of it done, but I'll show you quick how to do that. So we're just doing regular single crochets, so you're going to go into your first stitch, yarn over, pull back through that stitch, then yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. Go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull back through that stitch, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. Again, we go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull back through that stitch, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. So that was one, and I'm going to do that 6 more times around for a total of 7 rows going down. And that will give me this guy right here. Now once we finish that, so we go all the way through row 11, so we've gone down 7 times, we're going to take a quick break from crocheting and add our eyes and our beak. So we prepped those already. Take them out. And let's start by placing our eyes. So go ahead and look at the body that you have so far and decide where it is you want your eyes to be. You're just going to stick the back of the safety eye through the crochet stitches, and then you will take the backing of the safety eye and push it over the top. Some are pretty easy to put on. These ones that I have take some muscle, so you want to make sure that they snap all the way through. Okay, so it took me a second, but I did get the back on my safety eyes. And now I'm going to sew on his beak. So I'm going to need my sewing needle and a little bit of thread. There we go. It took me a second to get it through the eye of the needle, but that's normal. Okay, now I will tie a knot at the bottom of my thread. And all I'm going to do is just a couple stitches right at the top of the beak to sew it to my crocheted owl body. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and tie this off. Since I doubled my thread, I will just take the two separate pieces and tie them into a knot. Like that. And then I can trim off the excess. Okay, and his face is done. The last thing you can do at this step is optional. Hedwig kind of has some black streaks or feathers on her back, and so you can choose to sew those in with the black thread, but if you don't like how that looks, you don't have to do it. And also at the front, there's these little V's that I did because she kind of has some black feathers on her chest as well. So to add that, we will take our black yarn and our yarn needle. Go ahead and put the yarn into the yarn needle. And then we're just going to sew those on. So the little V's, we'll kind of want to choose one spot on the bottom and one spot like on your bottom row, and then two spots from the row above it that you can sew into. And you're going to make 3 of those. Just like that. That's 1. Two and 3. Now to tie these off, there's a variety of methods you can use, but what I like to do is tuck it into a stitch and then wrap the string through the little loop that you make by tucking it into a stitch 3 times, and that makes a little knot, and so you just pull the knot, slide it down, make it nice and tight, and then trim. And I'm going to do that on this side too. It's a little bit harder without the yarn needle. There we go. Just don't want my yarn to slip out of place. Okay, and you use that same technique on the back if you want to add those back feathers, but I'm not going to show you how to do that right now. Let's just finish crocheting Hedwig's body. Okay, so when I had taken my crochet hook out, I left a very big loop. I'm going to bring that back down so it's the correct size. And now we will be crocheting row 12. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to very rapidly decrease the size of our, we're going to very rapidly decrease the amount of stitches we have going around here. So right now there's 24, but we're going to decrease in every stitch and we'll end up with 12 stitches total. So to decrease a stitch, you crochet, you go into the first stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then you're going to go into the stitch next to it, yarn over, and pull through. Now you have 3 loops on your hook, and you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. That takes these 2 stitches and turns them into just 1 stitch. So we go from 2 to 1. You're going to do that in the next 2 stitches too. So you go into the stitch, yarn over, pull back through the stitch, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull back through the stitch, and then you yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Okay, I'll show you one more time. Go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through. Now you have 3 loops on your hook, and you will yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Okay, so I did that and I got all 12 going through. Just so you know, if you ended up messing up and you weren't able to decrease every stitch, or if at any point you end up messing up, you can take your hook out and undo the last stitches that you did. And then put your hook back in and start over. And you can unravel like a whole row if you need to and get back to the last point where you know you crocheted correctly, and then continue working from there. Okay. But that was row 12, so now we're on row 13. This is our last row, and we are again going to decrease the whole row. So we're going to go from 12 stitches to 6 stitches. And 1 second, I need to untangle my yarn. All right. So again, we are decreasing by stitching 2 stitches together each time. So we'll go through our first stitch, yarn over, pull through, go through our second stitch, yarn over, pull through. Now we have 3 loops on the hook, and we yarn over, and we pull through all 3 loops. Again, we go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, go on to the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Okay, so now we're going to cut a really long tail. We're going to stuff Hedwig and then stitch her up. So take your stuffing, do just enough stuffing to get her to, you know, a firmness that you like. You could have her be a little bit more squishy or a little bit more firm. I think that's pretty good. And then in this last spot to tie off, we're going to do a slip stitch. So that just means in the spot that we're in, we're going to yarn over and pull our yarn all the way through, and that makes a little knot. Okay, now this hole is still a bit big. Our stuffing could come right out, but we're going to use our yarn needle and the tail that we have, which is this bit here, to sew this together. So I just go through each stitch, and that helps bring it all together. Okay, so now I'm going to make a knot. And there are many different ways to make knots, but again, I like to go in through a stitch to make a loop and then go through my loop 3 times. Pull that down, and that makes a knot. Then to hide the tail, you'll take your yarn needle, stick it through the bottom, have it go all the way through your owl, and then cut it off on that other side. Okay, so now that we finished our body, we're going to crochet our wings. So we'll again start by making a slip knot where we wrap our yarn 2 times around our finger, pull the back loop over, now pull the new back loop over our whole finger, and then pull our loop up. Okay, we're going to be crocheting in a circle. So I'm once again going to use the chain method to start a ring. So to do that, I'm going to chain 4, 1, yarn over, pull through 2, 3, and 4. Then we go into our first chain and do a slip stitch, so yarn over and pull through both loops. Then we have a little blob. We pull at our blob until it looks like a pretzel, and then we choose the center hole for the pretzel and start crocheting into that. So for the wing, we're going to do a single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets, half double crochet, and single crochet. So we start with a single crochet, so we put our hook through the center. Now we're going to yarn over, pull that back through the center. We have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through. That was our first single crochet. Now we're going to do a half double crochet stitch. So to do that, we start by yarning over. Then we go in through the center of our circle. We yarn over again and pull through. So now there are 3 loops on our hook. Going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to do a double crochet. So again, we start by yarning over, then go in through the center of our circle, yarn over and pull through. Now we're going to yarn over and go through the first 2 loops on our hook. And now yarn over and go through all of the loops on our hook. And we're going to do a double crochet again. So we start by yarning over, then we go through the center of our circle, we yarn over and pull through, then we yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through all of the loops on the hook. Now we're going to do another half double crochet. So for that, we yarn over, go in through the center of the circle, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on our hook. And we're ending with a single crochet, so we just go in through the center of our circle, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through both loops. And now we'll want to tie off, so we make a slip stitch by yarning over, pulling through, and we're going to pull through extra so we have a long tail, because we're going to use that to sew our wings on our body. But that is one wing. You're going to do that a second time to make a second wing. Okay, now we're going to make our tail, and for the tail we're just going to use, single crochet 4 into a ring, and again I use the chain method when I make a ring. So I start by doing a slip knot. Oh my goodness, I slipped up on that slip knot. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to chain 4. And then I go into my first chain, and then do a slip stitch. Pull this apart to find that pretzel, and then use the center of the pretzel. Now I'm just going to single crochet 4. So I went in through the center, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. Again, into the center, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Okay, so once you have 4, then you can finish off by doing a slip stitch, and again, leave yourself a long tail for sewing. And kind of pull at both of these ends so that way I end up with this nice little tail-shaped guy. Alright, the last part we're going to make are ears. Now technically, snowy owls like Hedwig don't have ears, but personally I think they look really cute on the little crocheted owls, so it's up to you whether or not you want your owl to have ears or not. If you're going to make ears, again, start with a slip knot, and put it on your crochet hook. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to chain 3 and then double crochet into the first chain. So for chaining, we yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through. Chain 3, now we go back into the first chain and just do a single crochet. So we yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and pull through. Once you get that done, you can do a slip stitch to tie off. Okay. And basically what that did was it made a little chain and then wrapped it into a loop. So we have a nice little loop for Hedwig's ears. Okay, so the last step, once you have your wings, your tail, and your ears, will be to attach them to your owl's body. So for this, you'll need to use your yarn needle. And what I like to do, see how I have kind of 2 pieces of string that are coming off of, I have 2 pieces of string coming off of my wing. I like to take one and put it through my yarn needle and use this first one to place the wing. So I'll stick it through one of my stitches. I'm just gonna pull that all the way through, and now it's in place, and I pulled it all the way through so it's out on the other side of the owl's body. But now I'm going to use this other piece of yarn that's right here to actually sew that on. So I thread it through my yarn needle, and then we're just going to do some stitches up at the top here to attach the wing. So just a couple of loops. Can be a little tricky to get your yarn needle through depending on how tight your stitches are and how big your yarn needle is. Alright, so now that I have that sewn on, I'm going to bring my yarn down below the wing to tie a knot. Again, I like to make my knots by making a little loop and then going through the loop 3 times. And pulling that down, and there you go. And then I'm going to take my yarn needle again and push it all the way through the owl's body to hide those strings, and then trim them on this side. I'm going to use that exact same method to attach my other wing, both my ears, and my tail. And once I'm done, I have an owl that kind of looks like this. Now you have a mini head wig to personally deliver your Hogwarts letter. I hope you enjoyed making this tiny creation, and happy crafting!